This is the Breakaway Podcast, presented by the National Bird Hunters Association. The NBHA's Breakaway Podcast is brought to you by Purina Pro Plan, fine-tuned nutrition to promote strength and stamina in the canine athlete and longest-standing supporter of the sport of field trialing nationwide. You can fuel your champion with Purina Pro Plan using various physical and online retailers nationwide found wherever pet food is sold. Purina Pro Plan, fuel the champion within. Garmin, delivering innovative GPS-enabled technology across diverse markets, including sports and fitness, outdoor recreation, marine, automotive, and aviation. Garmin, engineered on the inside for life on the outside. Gundog Supply, the leader in training collars, tracking collars, and so much more. Fast, friendly service, great customer support, and the newest gun dog products on the market. Gundog Supply, we train our dogs with the products we sell. Mule brand clothing and apparel, outdoor clothing for all sorts of environments and conditions. From hunters in briars and wading creeks to forestry personnel, farmers, motorcycle riders, and utility workers, Mule is clothing for hunters, made by hunters for over 38 years. Find your Mule brand gear at www.okidogsupply.com. Gun Dog Central. Gun Dog Central is a centralized location for finding your next dog, whether it be a pointing dog, retriever, flusher, versatile breed, hound, or even terrier, you name it. Gun Dog Central is the place to find your next canine athlete. To find your next champion, visit them at www.gundogcentral.com. onX Hunt, the #1 hunting GPS app. Join the millions of hunters who trust onX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. onX Hunt, know where you stand. And Park Cities Quail Coalition. Park Cities Quail Coalition is a nonprofit organization run 100% by volunteers who are passionate about sporting traditions and determined to make it available to future generations by working to sustain and restore huntable wild quail populations, to encourage and educate interested youth, and to celebrate the quail hunting heritage. Welcome back for the 5th episode of the Breakaway Podcast. I am once again your host, Joe Hopkins. So glad that you've tuned in. And if you enjoy this podcast, or even if you're listening for the first time, please take the time to tell a friend, like, subscribe, and review the channel to help grow and promote the podcast and the sport of field trialing that we all love. Our guest this week is Indian Creek Kennels professional from Franklin, New Jersey, Mr. Garry Malzone. Gary, along with his partner and fiancée, Jillian Sturr, operate the Indian Creek Kennel String and their roster of owners competing almost exclusively on the NBHA National Circuit. Gary's operation is almost a complete upland service brand, offering professional training and handling while offering a 300-plus acre shooting preserve, which also breeds pointers, setters, British Labradors, and other upland breeds. But Gary also has a skill for identifying and sourcing dogs from other field trial circuits for his client base to compete on his string on the walking circuit. Great success has come with recent examples such as champion Pure Confidence and setter female Aaron's Deja Vu, along with many others. Gary has countless and multiple awards in the categories of Open Handler of the Year and Dog of the Year accolades across several circuits, winning championships from the far west all the way to the northeast and into the deep south, with a total of 95 Open Championship titles. Gary was also 5 years in a row the Open Handler of the Year in U.S. Complete from 2012 to 2016, and 7 years in a row currently with the NBHA Open Handler of the Year, reigning 2017 through this year of 2023. But Gary is not only a dyed-in-the-wool competitor, he is also a true purveyor of the sport of field trialing, bird dogs, and the upland lifestyle as a whole, and is passionate about the game's current state and its future. But before we get to our interview with Gary, let's go around the field trial world. The lengthy schedule of stakes held by the Boiling Springs Field Trial Club at the Tony Bingham Farm in Lawndale, North Carolina wrapped up Saturday, September 16th with the following placements. The shooting dog placements in the open stake went to High Rollins Gone and Done It in first place, owned and handled by Warren Parrott, followed by Setter Male T, handled by Tony Bingham, with tricolor Setter Male Blue Ridge Kobe taking third place for Mark Smith. The amateur shooting dog stake was taken once again by Warren Parrott and his pointer Boogie, with Tony Bingham also taking second place again, this time with Shiloh and Ricky placing third under David or Ross Penland. The NBHA Southwest Missouri Walking Field Trial Club held their fall trial this past weekend at the Robert E. Talbot Conservation Area in Mount Vernon, Missouri, where 7 stakes were on offer. Winners of the open shooting dog stake was German short-hair pointer named Freckles, owned and handled by Mr. Langley. In first place, pointer male Buzz, owned and handled by Mr. Smith, and in third, Mr. Kenny Snow, handling pointer female Rhiannon. The amateur shooting dog stake saw the ultra-consistent Mr. Craig Hyatt taking the stake with his pointer female Rosie, followed in second by Brittany female Dixie, owned and handled by Mr. McKinney, and in third place was setter female Rose. And in an interesting note in this trial, the amateur shooting dog stake, Judgment Ceases at Flush, or also known as a gun dog stake, was won by amateur Craig Hyatt again, but this time with his 3-legged pointer, yes, I said 3-legged pointer Sadie. Congratulations, Craig. On to the World of Horseback Field Trials. The 60th Annual National Shooting Dog Futurity concluded in Bloomingdale, Ohio, with first place going to Moe's Curtain Call, handled by Mike Tracy. Second place was Backcountry Champagne Supernova, who is maybe and hopefully named after one of my favorite Oasis songs, owned and handled by Chris Catanzarite. Third place went to Max Slim Jim, handled by Tim McClurg, with Pal's Prestigious Pete, owned by Lou Palazzolo, rounding out the first 4 placements, handled by Mike Tracy. The call was also made for the National German Shorthair Pointer Association Hungarian Partridge Amateur All-Age Championship, which was won by champion BMB's Sam Squanch, with runner-up champion being BMB's Free Ride. Also in the NGSPA world, German Shorthair Pointer male Woody, owned by Dana and Anthony Rusciano and handled by Dan DeMabro, won the NGSPA Region 8 Open All-Age Championship in Cheyenne, Wyoming, with German Shorthair Pointer male Huey taking runner-up for owner-handler Brandon and Jen Blum. The running of the Region 9 Amateur Shooting Dog Championship in American Falls, Idaho, revealed Perkins Sawyer's Warrior, a pointer male owned and handled by Chris Perkins, as champion, with runner-up champion being named SB Always Dreamin', a pointer female owned and handled by Bill Owen. Following the Region 9 Shooting Dog Championship was the Idaho State Open Shooting Dog Championship, and this championship was wrapped up by Chris Perkins with champion Touches Jimmy Thing, taking the championship owned and handled by Chris himself, and runner-up champion being Perkins Sawyer's Warrior, again on the podium, also owned and handled by Chris Perkins. The 2023 National Amateur Prairie Chicken Shooting Dog Championship held in Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, also just concluded, completing its running with Nemaha Tapwater, a pointer son of Coldwater Spectre, owned and handled by Dr. Pat McIntyre, taking home the championship, with last year's National Amateur Shooting Dog Derby champion and Region 13 Amateur All-Age runner-up champion Aaron's Rebel Attraction, who made a pretty strong bid at this same trial last year, taking runner-up for Mr. Brian Sheehan. The 2023 National Open Pheasant Shooting Dog Championship concluded with pointer female Jolene, handled by Mike Tracy and owned by David McKay and Joe McHugh, taking the championship spot, with runner-up Miller's Automatic Upgrade, taking runner-up honors also for Mike Tracy and owner Alan Linder. BGK's Luke, son of Tried and True and last year's runner-up champion, took the 2023 rendition of the Open Prairie Chicken Shooting Dog Championship for his owner, Jarrett Bell. Rounding out the placements in runner-up was Scott Jordan's ever-consistent pointer male Confident Nation. The Colorado Open Shooting Dog Classic also concluded this week out in Cheyenne, Oklahoma, with Griff's Express winning the Classic for owner Mike Griffin and handler Justin Crook, followed in second place by Cole for owner-handler Scott Hadley, and third place, Two-Seamer, owned by Colby Tackett, also handled by Justin Crook. Setter male Mox Y East Awahi Dally for Alex Mock took the Larry McConnell Memorial Region 9 Amateur All-Age Championship the past week, with SB Always Dreamin' finding himself upon the podium once more for Bill Owen. A pair of pointers from Boss Kennels took the Northwest Chucker Open Shooting Dog Championship this past week for Sergio Velez, with BK Pablo Escobar being named champion and BK Locked and Loaded taking runner-up. Rounding out the horseback action from the past 2 weeks was Jack and Fran Miller's pointer female, Miller's Cover Girl, winning the National Amateur Pheasant Shooting Dog Championship with Mr. Jack Handling, and pointer male Backcountry Buddy, owned and handled by Chris Catanzarite, taking runner-up champion. On to the Grouse Woods. The National Amateur Grouse Championship in Phillipsburg, PA closed out with judges writing up liver and white pointer male Sudden Silence as this year's champion, owned and handled by George Hetrick, and runner-up champion being setter female Flambeau River Meg, owned and handled by Joe Coglazier. 2023 Northern New England Woodcock Championship saw this year's North American Woodcock champion Caird's Cracklin' Rosie on the podium once again for John Stoljatis, handling Robert Little's pointer female to the championship, followed by Mike Fwelling's pointer male Boomer of Blackwater to runner-up honors. The Region 13 Amateur Field Trial Clubs of America Walking Shooting Dog Championship of 2023 went to Bob and Diane Wheelock's winning setter female Tupelo Honey, followed by runner-up Pine Straw's Fat Bottom Girl, owned by Dale Ash. The North Country Shooting Dog Championship is in the books. That took place in the Eau Claire County Forest in Augusta, Wisconsin, with Moss Meadow Seeker of Moss Meadow Kennels fame, owned and handled by Ken Moss, taking the championship. And Seeker was also the reigning champion from 2022. Runner-up this year went to Meredith Grade Corky with owner Dennis Kaiser and handled by Tammy Chafee. Upcoming NBHA dates around the bend include the Heart of Texas Field Trial Club. A Region 7 NBHA and ABHA trial will be held October 21st through the 23rd at the Earl Elkins Lease in Crawford, Texas. We'll be having a buffet of steaks with entries closing Wednesday, October 18th. The West Ark Field Trial Club will get cranked up October 21st through the 22nd in Booneville, Arkansas, with open and amateur stakes. Entries close Thursday, October 19th. And on October 22nd, our friends out in Kansas with the Wichita Bird Dog Club are going to get their season started out at the Radcliffe Ranch in Dexter, Kansas, with open and amateur stakes as well, with their drawing taking place Monday, October 16th. And might I add, the last 3 NBHA trials advertised have gun dog or judgment ceases at flush stakes. Other trials of note just around the bend include the following. Several dates on October 9th include the Fleetwood Open Shooting Dog Classic in Booneville, Arkansas, the Minnesota Grouse Dog Championship in the Rum River State Forest in Mora, Minnesota, the National German Shorthair Pointing Association's Great Lakes Championship in Iona, Michigan, and the Northeastern Open Shooting Dog Championship in East Windsor, Connecticut. October 10th will have 2 dates of note, being the Lone Star Open Shooting Dog Classic in Booneville, Arkansas, and the Michigan Woodcock Championship in Gladwin Field Trial Grounds in Meredith, Michigan. Moving on to October 12th, the North Dakota Open All-Age Classic will be at the Westfall Brothers Ranch in Longton, Kansas, and the Region 5 Amateur All-Age Championship in Grove Springs, Missouri. And rounding out those dates will be October 13th, where the International Amateur Woodcock Championship will be held in Moose Junction, Wisconsin. Make sure to stay up to date with all the National Bird Hunters Association field trial dates and other field trial dates around the country on our website at www.nbhadog.org and or at www.americanfield.com. Now that you're all caught up on everything in the field trial world, let's welcome in Mr. Garry Malzone. Joining us now on the Breakaway Podcast from Indian Creek Kennel fame is Garry Malzone. Garry, can you hear me loud and clear, buddy?
Yes, sir. I have you, Joe.
Garry, it's that time of year, and when we were putting our heads together with the people that we wanted to get on here, you and Jill were obviously like some of the first people that come to our mind. But as we started this, we started looking at the date and the timeline, and we were like, oh no, it's trial season. Like Garry and Jill are going 100 miles an hour right now. And me and you just had this conversation about you getting the grounds ready at your place, and you've got some serious tractor time, don't you?
Yeah, it's cutting season. The shooting preserve's open, and finally had some cool nights and cooler mornings, so everybody wants to come hunt.
And right now, you're full mode, getting that ready and getting dogs ready, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, full. And you've got a full string like you always do. And when I sat down with you and asked you about doing this interview, Garry, I kind of framed it to you like this, and you kind of chuckled. Everybody knows Garry Malzone. Everybody recognizes Garry Malzone. They can pick him out in the field. They've seen his accomplishments and stuff. But everybody knows very little about Garry Malzone. And I thought this was the perfect vehicle through which we could get you on here and people could learn a lot more about you, Indian Creek, and your whole system and how you guys operate there. And I'm just so appreciative of you coming on. But the first thing that I always start with, Garry, is people really gravitate towards this question. They want to know how everybody that comes on here gets started in bird dogs as a whole. How did Garry Malzone get started in bird dogs?
Well, my grandfather was a big part of that. My brother and I, along with him, bird hunted our since we could walk in the field. Every day, every Saturday when we were off, we'd go. Every day after school, my mom would drop my brother and I off. We had 410s, and we'd grouse hunt. We lived kind of in the city, but within 10 minutes, there were wild birds everywhere. We've hunted over labs, Brittany's, really back then, any bird dog at all that we could come by, we'd bird hunt. We'd use the bird hunt.
So it started with you like a lot of other people. It started with a gun in hand, chasing wild birds, getting out there and getting after it. And your background with dogs just isn't to one breed or just certain breeds. You've got a background with flushing dogs. You've got a background with all kinds of different breeds and stuff like that. And that eventually segues into trials somehow or another. How does Garry Malzone find himself finding an interest in the trials?
Well, we had a gun club here on this farm, years ago, and this is back in the early '90s, and there were a couple of guys that were members of the gun club. They dabbled in the as amateurs in the horseback field trial game, and they said, "Who's this guy with these pointers?" And they always they admired that they were great on their birds and they ran, and they said, "Hey, you ought to go check out a field trial. There's a field trial in Pennsylvania coming up. It's a horseback trial, but you take your dogs and go to the field trial, and just after the trial, let the pros take a look at your dogs and see what they think."
Yeah.
So my brother and I, we loaded up 3 or 4 pointers we went over. It was a horseback trial out in PA, and Gerald Tracy was there.
Yeah.
Norm Basilone, Pete DeAngelis. Back then, they were the big names on the East Coast, and they had a horseback trial. And we walked, believe it or not. We were young, and we were 30 years old. We walked, yeah, behind the horses, and we just got to see some fabulous dogs. I mean, they were clean on their game. They ran, classy. So, and that's when I was hooked. That was it. I said, I got to do this. I love the bird dogs. This is what I want to do.
And it was safe to say, though, after that trial or those series of trials that you went to, you got a knack for finished dogs, high quality, top shelf dogs. You saw that competition and you said, "That's for me. That's what I want to do."
Absolutely. Afterwards, one of the pros said, "Hey, I heard you had some nice dogs. Let me take a look at them." And we got on the horses, me and my brother, along with them, and cut them loose. And the fella said, "You're wasting a good dog hunting. These dogs are field trial dogs. I don't know why they're competitive with anything we ran. I don't know why you're just hunting them." And that really sparked the interest. So that's how it started. Then we went into there was a couple local trials here, and up. I guess first one was in Rhode Island or Cape Cod. I went, and I ran some puppies in the Derby Stakes and did pretty good. And then we ran some Derbies in the Shooting Dog Stakes and did pretty good. And we were hooked right then and there.
You know, I can think back of when I first started trialing, Gary, and I had a gentleman come up to me and make a comment about my dog. He'd said something really good about my dog, and that competition that day and being involved in that and stepping up and doing that, and then that positive reinforcement, that competition, and that man saying what he did about my dog, that's what did it for me. I'll never forget what he said to me. And at that point, I was sold, and I was coming back. You know, it didn't matter what kind of dog I had or didn't have. And when the right people walk up to new trialers or people that are trying to get involved and they just say something positive or make them feel welcome or give them a comment, man, that goes a long way when you're first getting started. And it sounds like that same thing happened to you.
That's exactly what happened. Yep, we had the confidence that we can do it, and we went with it.
Hey, Gary, who were some of your earlier friends or mentors, like early on in your trial career? Did you hinge on anybody? Did you lean on anybody? Can you say that you learned a lot from certain person or people earlier in your career?
Yes, I wound up buying a couple short hairs, German short pointers, from a pro out in Ohio. He passed away a few years ago. His name was Len Forbish. Him and his wife Bonnie were so welcoming to me, and they invited me down. They worked in the winter at a Buckeye plantation. They leased it to train he had shooting dogs, horseback shooting dogs, and all age dogs. And I'd go down, stay down in Waynesboro with him and his wife, and work dogs with them. And Len would even come up to my farm here in New Jersey in the summer and stay with me and work dogs here. And he was a great mentor. He was patient. And he said that the farm that I have here will do great things for a bird dog. And then also, I bred to guardrail frozen semen several times.
Wow.
And I got to know Gene Casal real well.
Cool.
I'd go up and work dogs in the meadows in Connecticut. He'd come here to my place, and then I'd go and spend some winters down in South Carolina with him. we got to be. He was like a dad to me. He had a love for a bird dog that like I've never seen,
Yeah.
and he uh, he was a big part of why I kept going.
That's really cool because we had Dr. Stan Wint on here a few episodes back, and he had a connection too to Dr. Gene Cassell, and it's amazing. There you are up in the Northeast, and here Stan Wint is out west in Kansas and in that part of the world. And this same man had a big influence on both of you guys, seemingly on two separate sides of the planet. And I'm going to go off cuff here for a minute and ask you a question about this because it's always amazed me. But when people think about field trials, Gary, you know this, that they usually think about the piney woods or the prairies or those common field trial hubs. But the northeast part of our country is just thick with field trial people and field trial history, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Some of the best dogs that ever came around were bred in the Northeast, New England. You had not only Gene Cassell but Rich Giuliano, who bred Guardrail. He's an outstanding breeder. And if you go up to Connecticut, up to Flaherty, they have a huge horseback field trial venue.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a melting pot up there in the Northeast because not only is the horseback game prevalent, you've got a walking sector up there that's massive, and then you've got the grouse woods trials. The cover dog trials find their way up there. So it's very much an area of the country that's very, very thick in the field trial world. But your area, Gary, as of right now, is in the walking trial sector, you and Jill, and in particularly the National Bird Hunters Association trials. How or when or why did you get started in NBHA trials? How'd that happen?
Jill and I were out on the U.S. Complete Circuit, and they had an NBHA, the Breeders' Invitational, back in, I want to say it was 2012. So we went out to that, and we met some great folks, Larry Carpenter, Tim Penn, Kevin Western. They're just the salt of the earth. They were very welcoming. They showed us a great time. We ran a little dog called Texas Honeybee, and we were lucky enough to win that championship there. And since then, we went out to the Futurity to Missouri every year, and just the whole team of NBHA folks were just in a league of their own.
Awesome.
Welcoming, just couldn't do enough for you.
That's great. Yeah, and a lot of those people, man, they're still involved and they're still pushing the wagon, so to speak, in the NBHA trials. And I ever since I've been involved in NBHA, when I think about NBHA, there's certain figures and people and dogs that naturally come to mind. And ever since I've been involved, Gary, you've been one of our poster boys, and you hammer out our circuit year after year and take your clients' dogs to these championships and this grueling circuit that goes pretty much the span of the eastern Midwest and southern parts of the United States here. And for our listeners here that are involved in NBHA or walking trials, or they're just getting started, what is it or what was it about walking trials in general, the format or the NBHA? What is it about that fits you and your career and what you do with Indian Creek?
Well, I when I first started here on this farm, I was guiding 2 to 3 hunts a day, at least all day Saturday and Sunday, and sometimes before work during the week. The same type of dog that I use for guiding here, I used to compete in the NBHA trials. They're classy shooting dogs. I kept them broke under birds while guiding here, and it's nothing to guide with a dog on Saturday and Sunday, and take the dog the following weekend and be competitive in a walking stake. I believe it's just a super classy shooting dog on public display.
Do you feel like that the use of your shooting preserve and using those dogs is a part of your other side of your career, guiding hunts and making sure your clients have memories made in the field? Do you feel like that better makes the dogs for their competition in walking trials?
100%. As long as you keep them broke. It helps with everything. It helps with the training. It helps with the helps my breeding program. I want a dog that could handle 15 finished pheasant finds in a guided hunt and keep it together. And that's what I look for in my breeding program.
And, in our format, Gary, we watch those birds fly off and we fire a blank and we go grab that collar and we go and move on to the next one. But in those guiding situations, in those shooting preserves, that dog's got to actually watch that bird fall and hit the ground. And that's causing that dog to think about some stuff, and it's really fortifying that training, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's a huge part of our training.
That's awesome. Now, I'm going to ask you an open-ended question here, Gary, because you could go all over the place with this. Your career at this point, far from over, obviously, but what's been some of your biggest accomplishments that you've had?
I think in 2017, the NBHA National Championship was to be held at the Ames Plantation. And, we've heard, it got back to us through the grapevine that, Gary's dogs are liberated bird dogs. They're not covey or pre-released wild bird dogs. And, just what we spoke about here, these pheasants on this farm, they've been snagged by a lab by the tail. They've been shot out on the ground.
They're street smart.
Oh yeah, they're from the hood like me. I mean, if you can consistently get these pheasants pointed, you have a bird dog.
Yeah.
So we prepared our dogs for that type of venue, and it was a great trial. I think there was 50 some dogs. Ron Levitan's little dog, High Fives Passing Time, was it wound up being the dog top qualifier. Yeah. And then in the callbacks, this Megan's Blackjack, this setter I ran, wind up nudging her into runner up. But just to watch those dogs go out and handle them wild coveys and fire to the front, it's something I'll never forget.
That's awesome. And that venue, I mean, it's a super special venue in itself, but to be able to take that NBHA championship out there on those grounds and to do that and to get both of those placements, that's not a memory that's going to leave your mind for a long time. And both of those dogs, we're going to touch on those because those have a special place in Indian Creek and NBHA history. But what's been some of your most fondest memories competing? It could be a specific memory, Gary, or just in general, just competing as a whole. What's been some of your more fondest memories?
I think there's another one that comes to mind. We had a young dog named Indian Creek Bocephus, and we as a first year dog, he was just turning 3. We went down to the NBHA regional championship and down in Georgia, and we took runner up with him. That was a big deal. And then the second championship was the U.S. Complete National Championship. We went back to Virginia, and Ellen and Gary went all judged the championship, and Bo just went out there and knocked it out, was named national champion. When I called his owner, Ed Marin, it was the best call I made in my life. He was so excited, so happy for the dog. And, these are memories I'll never forget.
Yeah. And etched in time and space on special places with special people. And, these dogs are special in themselves, but you might have another good one or you might have another great one if you're fortunate enough, but the individual memories that these individual dogs carve out on their own, that's what makes them unique. And I want to talk about one dog in particular here, Gary, and you've already mentioned him, and it's Indian Creek Bocephus. Now, like a lot of other dogs that I've talked about in episodes before, Bocephus is the now dog. Like every time you open NBHA or think about NBHA, or you're going to see a championship running order, Indian Creek Bocephus is going to be in that draw, and he's going to be right in the mix. And you were just telling a story about him as a young dog, a 3-year-old, but you were telling me on the phone the other day, Bo's no spring chicken anymore.
Yep. Bo and Pure Confidence will both turn 10 This I believe it's middle of January.
And I've got my fingers crossed right now, but I know what the answer to this is. Can you just please tell me that either one of those dogs are slowing down for the rest of the competition's sake?
You know, Pure Confidence has a little gray on his muzzle, where Bo Cephas is still a puppy. If anything, it may slow him down a little bit, may help him out.
Oh, that's not
Yeah.
good news to the rest of us. That's not.
No, no. I remember, Joe. We were going to a championship down in Cedartown. It was the national NBHA national championship in Cedartown, Georgia. And Bo Cephas was just the Derby, and we didn't have an owner for him. He was born in my hands, and he had superstar written all over him, and we didn't get an owner. We couldn't get an owner for him. Well, Ed Marin was up here. He's a setter man, and he had a young setter here with us. And Jill said, we were pulling into the grounds in Georgia, and Jill said, "Why don't you call Ed Marin? Maybe he'll buy Bo." I said, "I don't know." I said, "Let me give it a shot." So I called him. I said, "Ed, we're pulling into the championship grounds. They have a Derby Classic. We haven't entered in it, and we're looking for an owner for him." He said, "Okay, I'll take him," just like that.
Wow.
And he went out. I think there was 20 some dogs, and he had 6 perfect finds as a Derby. And afterward, we had won the national championship. I think it was with High Fives Passing Time, but the judges judged the Derby as well. And they come up to me and said, "That little white dog, if you ran him in the wrong stake, you should have ran him in the national championship. If he did what he did in the Derby, he would have been named national champion." And then, like I said, we went, and he won every Derby stake after that season, for the whole season. And we went to those same grounds the following year, and he took runner up his first trial
Wow.
as a shooting dog. He was a runner up champion.
Wow. And I told you this on the phone. One of the mind-numbing things about our sport is the centralization of data and information and history and records. But I've got here, Gary, that Bo is a 15-time champion, and I know he won last year's NBHA National Championship in Danceyville. I mean, he's just got this resume that has went from strength to strength year on year. But tell me if this is true or not. I mean, is the most prideful part of it for you is not just the accomplishments and what that dog is and the great owner that he's got, but you bred this dog.
Yes, Joe. We had a bitch here off of Indiana Brownie. He was a champion in the Northeast here that we really liked. We bred him to. I had another champion son of Mr. Awesome named Blazing Trails here, and we bred Blazing Trails to the Indiana Brownie bitch, and we got a champion here called Indian Creek Riptide.
Yeah.
She was a outstanding dog, and she was a champion right away. I think it's a first year dog, and we said, who are we going to breed her to? And I seen Brown's Tom. He was an outstanding bird dog. He was a son of Belfield Silver.
Yeah.
And Tommy Brignan was nice enough to let us breed to him, and we did. And Bo Cephas, like I said, was born in my hands. He was special right from a puppy. It was a little bit difficult acclimating him to gunfire when he was just a puppy. And I mean a puppy, 5-6 months old. He would point a bird, a quail, and the quail would walk in front of him. And, I'm waiting for him to rip the bird and chase it so I can start shooting a blank gun over him. He would not move.
Wow.
The bird would just walk around. He would not move. Finally, I would put a lead on him, flush the bird, and try to drag him to chase so Jill could stand 20 yards away and fire a blank gun. And to this day, very seldom, and I mean very seldom, will you see him make a mistake.
I don't remember much about Belfield Silver. I've read a lot in the field about Belfield Silver. That dog, in my mind, though, was just a very classy, clean dog that always performed, always got around, seemed to be always good on his bird work and stuff. But the funny thing about Brown's Tom, Bo's daddy, he pops up in pedigrees here, there, and yonder, but he's not horribly prevalent. But he's also the sire of 12 or 14-time champion Way Better Rocky that Mike Tracy has just put the most unbelievable career on as well in the horseback shooting dog circuit. So you obviously saw something there and the potential there with Brown's Tom Tom in this cross that got you Bo, and clearly those traits came out.
Absolutely. I think, Tommy Brigman ran him, and I think if he would have went with Mike Tracy, or any other horseback pro, I think he would have been 14 or 15-time champion himself.
Wow.
Tommy Brigman just ran him in a couple, trials, a couple amateur championships, but he was as good a bird dog, a covey dog as you'll ever find. And like you said, he reproduced himself with Bocephus.
That's amazing, and sounds like we're not done with Bo, just like we're not done with the next dog that we're going to talk about, and that's Pure Confidence. And people on both sides of the equation here are probably going to be somewhat familiar with Pure Confidence in that he's by Hall of Fame candidate this year, True Confidence. Tell me a little bit about Pure Confidence.
Again, Pure Confidence come out of Rich Giuliano's outstanding breeding program. Tim Cavanaugh and Pete LaBella from Connecticut owned him and brought him to me as a Derby. And he was another one. It was him and Bo. They were Derbies the same year. They'd go 1 and 2 in every Derby stake. Bo ran a little bit bigger, but True Confidence, we call him Tango. He was right there with him. I think what puts him in the winner's circle is his consistency. You can take him and run him in the grouse woods, and then you can take him and run him at Dancyville. He does the same thing. He applies himself. His application and experience is just unbelievable. And and he's gorgeous on game, and he never takes himself out.
So what I hear from you, Gary, is applicability and biddability of this dog. He's going to do whatever you put in front of him, and he's going to do it well. And agree or not, but I have a tendency to think that these dogs, we kind of find their lane that they're best at, and we keep them there, and we don't necessarily challenge them, or we don't think we need to cross over, maybe try this, or go here and run there, or try this stake, and yada, yada, yada. I can't help but think the good ones just do anything good. It's just like an athlete. You might be a good basketball player. Chances are you're probably a good football player too. The good ones just do it good, don't they?
I agree. That's well said. Yep.
Megan's Blackjack, Gary. Here's a dog that kind of sticks out in my mind just from the visual standpoint. This setter, I mean, could you bend more solid black in color? This dog was like, a shadow. Just a solid black setter, 8-time champion by Peacedale Duke, who was also a champion walking dog. Tell us a little bit about Megan's Blackjack.
The old ugly dog. Not only was he black, but his muzzle and his face was, he looked like a black setter with a wire hair's face.
Frankendog.
Couldn't have made an uglier dog. Rich Frisella had him from Rhode Island, and who also owned his father, Peacedale Duke,
cool.
Who, by the way, I think was one of the best bird dogs that ever lived, that Peacedale Duke. I watched him do things in South Carolina that would amaze anyone. Blackjack, his forte is he's a huge front running dog. He's honest on his birds from day one. I judged him as a Derby when Rich Frisella ran. He went out and had 6 broke fines as an off-age Derby. Shooting dog broke fines, and I always told Rich, hey, if you want to sell him, we can get an owner for him. And finally come up, and we just took him to a different level. I remember cutting him loose up at Panther Creek in Illinois, and the judge is saying, "Son, what the hell kind of dog is that?" And I saw, he's just an ugly dog. Well, 10 minutes into the stake, the judges are standing in their stirrups, pointing them out, taking these lines, and I'm not sure, but I think he finished with 12 or 13 titles.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I don't envy and I'm assuming Jill did a lot of blackjack scouting. I don't envy the scouting duty, scouting the solid black dog. I mean, that it's bad enough to scout red setters and some of these other breeds who seemingly have camouflage when they get up against cover, but solid black is just asking a little too much.
Well, I agree. I felt bad for Jill, and she said she felt bad for me bringing them to the line, so we're even.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Perfect. Worked out in the end, anyways.
It did. Yeah.
How about a 2023 NBHA Hall of Fame class dog, double-digit champion, high fives passing time? You've already spoke about that dog in a little bit here, but tell us about passing time.
She come to me, I believe she was a first-year dog. Bruce Menard bred her and developed her, and he did a great job. I think he was transitioning, changing venues, going from the grouse woods to all age, I believe.
Yes.
And the owners, Ron and Deb Levitan, didn't want her going all age. So we had a client in Lake Erie, Pennsylvania. We had a dog. It's called Texas Honeybee, and his name was Kevin Klein. Him and Ron Levitan were friends. So Ron said, "Hey, Kevin recommended that I bring." Her name was Country. I bring Country to you. So he come one day and he cut her loose in the field, and she was beautiful on her birds, but she was confused if she could run or not. She was kind of sticky. We worked her all that summer, and I gave Ron a report. I said, "She's a good one." He said, "Deb and I will be honored if even with a runner-up championship." And I said, "Well, she's going to do a heck of a lot more than that." Well, yeah, we worked her all fall. We took her down south, and I want to say the first trial I ran her in was an NBHA championship. I believe it was at Cooper Black, and that's when we made the phone call to Ron that she got edged out by Blackjack, but she won the runner-up championship there. What was special about her, Joe, was her application. She had an unbelievable desire to find birds. I've watched her running down an edge, and she, out of the corner of her eye, she'd see an objective way out to the left. She'd peel off the edge, swing the objective, hook back on the edge, and you'd find her pointed 7-8 minutes later down to the front.
Awesome.
She had that trademark pointing style with her high nose kissing the sky, and she was just a great dog. You could I'd let her out here on the farm lawn while we're eating dinner. She'd play around and keep herself busy, never leave you. Yet when you hit that whistle, she was a poppy seed on the horizon the whole while.
And so fancy moving, and just a great dog. Make you smile when you saw this dog on the ground. I was fortunate enough to get to see her on the ground. But I love stories like this, Gary, because this dog encompasses a lot of moving parts from a lot of different moving places. You have a dog here that's bred by a horseback shooting dog champion in Sugar Knoll Buckshot out of one of Bruce's bitches, High Five Pepper Ann. Bruce brings this dog along, gets it going, has this maybe cover dog type of road laid out for this dog. His path takes him a different place. The dog comes to you, and now it's on the walking circuit here. It's just a great melding of all the good things in field trials and all the interesting things. We've got cover dog, we've got horseback, and the dog was amazing on the walking circuit. Like it just fortifies in my mind that these good dogs can be successful somewhere. Just put them somewhere. Like put them over here, try them in walking trials. If it's not that, maybe it's horseback if they have a tendency to run bigger or run better off the horse, or maybe they're just awesome in the woods. Get them in the woods. And this dog just had everything going for her.
100%. I'm very familiar with that breeding. Sugar Knoll Buckshot come off of Mr. Awesome. A good friend of mine, Bill Rickey,
Yes.
from South Jersey, owned Irish, and I bred to him right on his death, right up until he passed away. We had some great success with dogs coming off of him. Their application their running style was second to none, and that kind of describes Country.
I'm going to tell a story real quick, and you may not remember this, Gary, but I remember when my Nick dog made the callback in the 2018 and 2019 NBHA free-for-all championship at Berea. I wasn't able to be there. I've got an annual fishing trip that I take with my friend down at Lake Okeechobee, so I asked one of my best buddies, my training partner, Brian French, if he would handle Nick, and he was a little reserved at first, and he was a little apprehensive to do it, but he did it. And he calls me the day that Nick's run, after it's over that evening, and says, hey, we made the callback, and he did a great job. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm over the moon. And I was happy for two things. I was happy that the dog made the callback, but I was so happy that the dog made the callback on another handler's whistle. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then
Sure.
And then after I got over my elation, he said, okay, yeah, and the other dogs in the callback are Pure Confidence, High Fives Passing Time, Indian Creek's Bocephus, and Blair's Witch Project. And I was like, oh, crap. Like, Brian, that's a pretty important detail. These dogs, we're looking at like a Hall of Fame roster of dogs in that callback, and there's me and my dog and Brian, and we just feel like deer in the headlights. Like, we feel like tourists. We don't belong here. And I'll never forget that. And that callback picture is probably one of my favorites because it's somebody else holding a dog that's not even mine because Nick went home that day, so they grabbed a setter off somebody else's string and just took a picture with it.
Boy.
But I thought that was just a great story, and High Fives Passing Time was right there in the mix. And I can't remember if Pure Confidence or Passing Time won that year, but I think one of those two dogs won it that year, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I remember that, Joe. Your dog did a fabulous job. Joe and I rode and watched, and Brian did a tremendous job handling him.
Cool.
And he fit right in. I think that was at Berea, right?
It was. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Bocephus won it.
Okay.
Bocephus.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's just one of those things. You're just kind of glad to be there. It was. I wish I had a T-shirt with that picture on it and all those dogs. I was just glad to be there. Gary, there's a dog though that goes further back in time, a really special dog to you, and that's Texas Honeybee. And maybe some of our listeners aren't as familiar with Texas Honeybee, but I could tell by talking to you the other day, Texas Honeybee's got a huge place in your heart.
Yes, Kevin Klein was a new customer, and he brought the dog here. This dog sleeps in the bed with him and his wife. She was a sweetheart. I seen how important it was to Kevin and Shelly to have her in the winner's circle, and he trusted Jill and I with her. She come here. She had a few issues. She was with 3 other pros, and they had a hard time. I just think that they didn't get along with the dog. We loved her. Jill loved her. I loved her. We played with her in between workouts. I remember we had her down South Carolina. We got her that summer, fall, and we took her down to our grounds in South Carolina. And horseback pro Randy Laddie was saddled up. Rich Frisella was there, Gene Casal. And we cut her loose, and she flew around that course just like she was meant to be in the South. She had an issue with birds. She would point a bird and back up and circle it, and she would do it at 9 out of 10 fines. I remember Gene Casal tell me, he said, if you get that bitch out of that, you'll win big time with her. Yeah, and we worked her every day, 2-3 times a day. We'd set her up, and they would help as well. And we took her and went up to Percy Priest and won the National Breeders' Invitational Championship with her. And I want to say 11 other championship titles. She was just a special dog, and she just passed away, I guess, a year ago, and broke Kevin and Shelly's heart because she was part of her family.
And she was a setter. And did you ever breed Texas Honeybee, Gary? Was there ever that in her horizon?
You know, we wanted to breed her to the most intelligent dog that we knew of, and it was Megan's Blackjack. Yeah. And we tried. We could just never get her bred, and those puppies would have been outstanding, I'm sure, but we never got her bred.
Yeah. setters have a soft spot in my heart, and I would have known if there'd been some progeny out there with her in their breeding, because she was one of those stellar setter females out there that's been in our history books. But Gary, what's interesting about all these dogs here, and the list goes on and on in this hypothetical shed row, in this kennel, of all these champions and winners and great dogs that you've had over the year, that you and Jill have had just large parts in their careers. But with all of those dogs, there's a similar reoccurring thing here, and that's good owners. You have an extremely good roster of owners. Ed Marin, John and Lori Bleeker, Ron Leviton, and then that kind of mix, or that syndicate group of Black Meadows Kennel, who involves some of those people I just mentioned there. How important is it for a dog on the circuit to have a good, solid, reliable owner?
I think for the dog's career or chances of becoming something, it means everything. That syndicate, it's 4 gentlemen: Ed Marin, Dave DeVries, John Bleeker, and John Evanzato. They belong to the Black Meadow Club. I think Ed Marin was president for years, and it's an old boys club, and they appreciate a class shooting dog. All 4 are professionals, and they come up and look at dogs and watch us work dogs, and it's just a great group of owners. They understand the game. They understand that the dogs need to stay here and consistently be worked and kept in shape. And also, Ron Levitan was a great owner. We have an owner, Joe Link. He's the owner of Evans Deja Vu.
Yeah.
He's another great owner. I tell you, if we weren't comfortable with these owners, we wouldn't play the game.
Yeah, yeah. And these are owners. These are the top owners too, because I've met John and Lori Bleeker. I've met Ed Marin. These are the top owners, Gary, that if Garry Malzone tells them a dog needs more time, or it needs to take a step back, or whatever it needs, these are the owners that are going to stick it out. They're not going to pull the dog, and they're not going to give up on it. They're going to stick it out and give that dog a chance. And for your game and for your business and for you to be successful, you have to have owners that are willing to roll with the punches.
Absolutely. And the folks we just mentioned trust us and absolutely are just that.
Let's talk about this for a minute, Gary, because my background is in thoroughbreds, and in the thoroughbred world, syndicates they're just prevalent. They're the thing now, and they're the largest model of ownership in the game, and they're getting bigger and bigger every year. And every time I see an Indian Creek dog that gets its picture taken with Black Meadows Kennels listed as the owner, I can't help but think that this is the thing that our sport needs more and more of. We need more ownership groups. Now, I know trainers and handlers would like one owner for each dog, and they'd love their trailers full that way. But if we're going to be realistic about the future and, the costs of living and the costs of keeping these dogs going on the circuits, on these campaigns, these syndicates have got to be just a great avenue for people, don't they, Gary?
I think you're absolutely right, especially with the fuel being what it is and everything else. I think if you have a group or a couple of guys that get along and they're after the same results with a dog, I think it's the way to go. I mean, in a situation like this, if the entry fee is $100, it's split 4 ways. Right off the bat, it becomes affordable.
Yeah, and that's not only that. That's vet bills. That's the training fees. That's all of that becomes fractional cost to those individual owners. And plus, it's got to be a whole heck of a lot of fun to share that with close friends and stuff. But I'd imagine, too, if I call Garry Malzone or Jill at Indian Creek and say, hey, I want to own a leg of a dog, you could put me in with somebody. You could probably find a dog, or you've got a dog needing an owner or owners, and you could probably make that happen, couldn't you?
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Joe. They have fun. Ed Marin says, why I do this. I said, I love the dogs. I love the sport, but it's fun. It's exciting. They bought a little derby off of us last fall named Pineapple, and they followed her, and she won a bunch of trials. And, just the name alone, they have fun with. I think it's the future. I really do.
I do too, and I try to push it a little bit, and I've said it on an episode before. I'll say it again. If you've got that prospect, I can help you with finding a piece, an owner, or trainer, or whatever. You just got to put the parts together, make some phone calls and stuff. But I definitely think it's the future. But There's also another thing here, Gary, that needs to be brought up and out into the open and needs its time in the sun. Talk a little bit about Jill. Jill is just as synonymous with your image. She's right there. I mean, she is just a part of the operation. She does things behind the scenes. She does things in front of the scenes. Talk about what Jill means to you and the whole Indian Creek operation.
Well, she's my life. I mean, without her, I could never have accomplished the things that we've accomplished together. Just she's out roading dogs in the morning, cleaning kennels. She's got a great eye for a puppy. She's good with the puppies. She's outstanding with the horses. The paperwork, the billing, it's just, she does it all. She's in the field with me from daybreak till dark every day. She gave up a great job, a career to travel with me, and I couldn't do it without her.
Yeah. And what's obvious from what time I've spent with you guys, Jill's not a helper. Like Jill is a major piece of the machine, and she's not just a person that does dog things. She's a dog person. I've seen pictures of her, on the ground with puppies, socializing puppies, just in the mix. And she's about that lifestyle that we talked about. She's one of these people that if you're going to be successful and you're going to have a lifetime or a career in field trials and enjoyment in field trials, you have to love the work. And she just looks like somebody that just loves the work.
Absolutely, Joe. She's never afraid to get her hands dirty, and looks forward to cleaning kennels, and looks forward to raising puppies and cleaning puppy poop and vaccinating the puppies, and and combing the burdocks out of the horses. And there's just so much to do in this game that I definitely couldn't do it all by myself. And she's a huge part of the success that we've had.
I mean, it has to say it, and I don't know if I'm the first one to say it, but Gary and Jill, you're the Bonnie and Clyde of field trials. But I'm going to ask you a question now that I was hesitant to ask you, Gary, because being on the board of the NBHA, this probably isn't the best question to be asking you, but I know people have it just like I do. Why hasn't Garry Malzone branched out into horseback trials?
We did compete in the Northeast. There's a bunch of horseback trials, especially at those grounds in Connecticut. They're only 3 hours from here, and we did compete in horseback trials in New Jersey and in Connecticut, and we've won horseback trials. We talked before about the why we stuck with the NBHA and the type of dog. I first of all, I want to stay in shape.
Yeah.
Also, the type of dog I believe we can compete favorably in horseback trials.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I'm gonna walk as long as I can, and maybe one day if I can't walk, then we'll go into the horseback trials.
And correct me if I'm wrong. You've already kind of said this in a roundabout way. Your business at home, the shooting preserve, you're on foot guiding those hunts, and that only melds those two and keeps them on the same plane. You're walking at these competitions, you're walking at the shooting preserve, and it just makes sense, doesn't it?
It makes sense. And even when we go up north and hunt wild birds, we're on foot, and the dogs know that.
So here's another abstract kind of big-time question. You go as specific and go as shallow as you want with this, Gary, but I'm just curious, what's your philosophical approach to training dogs? Are you a guy that just likes to get dogs cranked early and you put them through a system, and if they come out ready to fire, great, and if not, we'll maybe move them on or give them time or whatever? Or how does Garry Malzone approach to training dogs?
The old-fashioned way, shoe leather. I give them as much time as they need. Yep, everything's done with our hands on in the bird field, and some of them come on a little faster than the others. If the others come on a little slower but look like they have the tools, we'll give them a chance. And also, having the shooting preserve here, we have an outlet for the dogs that will make a good hunting dog, but just don't have what it takes to compete on a big stage.
And there's a dynamic here that I kind of gravitate towards because I kind of have to play and wear this hat in the thoroughbred world a little bit. But you're obviously you have an eye that's attuned to finding dogs or prospects of dogs that are on other circuits. You know, they're on the horseback circuit, and maybe they're getting it done, maybe they're not, or maybe the owner just wants to change a pace. But you have been so good at sourcing dogs from other circuits, albeit the grouse woods, the horseback circuit, and putting them on your string and being so successful for those dogs. And you mentioned one earlier, Aaron's Deja Vu. I can't remember if she's by Shamrock or by Atlantic Way, but out of Sean Derrick's, system there and his section of setter breeding. You bring that dog on, and it's just like the dog is ready made for your program in this format. How do you? What's the secret in finding these dogs? Do you just know? Can you explain it?
Yeah, we have a good relationship with Sean, and I spoke to him several times. He said, "I have a good one for you." And we Joe Link was coming on as an owner, and Sean did an outstanding job. When we got her, she was a Derby. She was beautiful on her game, and yeah, I mean, the best success we had, Joe, is with dogs that were born here in our hands, and we took our time and developed them. I mean, that's the best success that we've had.
Sure.
But every now and then, one will fall short for an all-age dog or fall short for a wide shooting dog, and we find out and see if they'll work in our game, and then we try to get an owner for them.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I really like that part of it because you're not only are you a breeder and you're cultivating your own stock and what you like, but you're kind of playing talent scout a little bit. You're kind of watching other people, other dogs, other circuits, and when you kind of hear the scuttlebug that maybe this one's going to be on the move or this one's going to maybe fall off somebody else's string and can be repurposed. It's really cool to find those dogs somewhere else competing and being successful, just like that dog, for example. But I want to know, just from a personal thing, if I set Garry Malzone down and I've got to make him explain it to me, how does Garry Malzone explain the type of dog he likes and what he's looking for his string in particular?
Well, there's two of us looking at him, Jill along with me. And one thing that we're both big on, especially Jill, is power. We don't want that average dog that's out there eating grass or not applying himself. From the minute they hit the ground till you hook them at the end of the hour, we want to see application. And the dogs we spoke about there, Pure Confidence and Bocephus and them, that's exactly that describes them to a T. That's first and foremost. We don't want a dog going out there half speed with no direction. Just application to us is priority.
Yeah, you want a business-like dog. If he is unhooked, you want that dog busy. You want them doing something, going somewhere, and making something happen. And that sounds like it's easy to identify in dogs. And maybe it is as they get older, but it's definitely not easy to identify early. And I guess that's why you have such good success with the stock that you breed, because you know the parents, the sire, and the dam, and the mix that you're probably going to get, and that you're probably going to have that trait of determination.
Absolutely, and we look for that and breed for that. I can't tell you how many times a judge would come up to me after the trial, or the chairman would tell us what the judges said. And they said what separates Gary's team of dogs from the other ones is their application. They drive to find these birds, and I think that's huge for especially horseback too, but especially in a walking game, because you see them the whole while.
Right. Now, Garry, the awesome part about your job, and I know it's awesome to me, but I know it takes its wear and tear on you and Jill and the string at times, but you guys travel the country, and you get to go to all these different field trial grounds and see all these places on different cover types and different kind of setups and layouts at these grounds. What are some of your favorite field trial grounds that you go to?
Inola, out in Oklahoma. It's a ranch, a cattle ranch. If the dogs the first couple times have to figure out how to navigate the openings and the gates. There's a huge fence line with just a 6-foot gate, and they have to, realize that they have to go through the gates and go on. Once they figure it out the first time or two, it's over. They're great grounds. Boonville, Arkansas. I love that venue. The first part of the course is tough, but once you cross the creek there, Lick Creek, their grounds are gorgeous. Always loved running in Danceyville, Tennessee. That's I love the piney woods, and it opens up into the bean fields and the edges. The finish is a monster field to go around. That's a great venue as well.
That's awesome. I'm shocked that Enola makes the list at the top for you, because here's Garry Malzone from New Jersey, and Enola, Oklahoma, probably the farthest drive you have to make. Isn't that like running on the moon for you from where you're from?
Yeah, that's definitely 3/4 of the way across the country from where we're from. Fortunately, we winter in South Carolina, so our first trial is the championship, the Southern Championship down at AG Preserve in Georgia, and then we get back to Pinewood, and then from there we head out for the breeders up to Grove Spring, and then once we're on the circuit every weekend, we hit every championship.
Yeah. And it's a grueling task, but I have a feeling in the coming weeks, you and Jill and the horses and the dogs get real cozy on the trailer and the truck, and you get real acquainted with it. And that's probably your upcoming schedule here in the next couple of weeks and months. But breeding sounds like, Garry, is a big part of what you and Jill do. You've obviously got a pretty heavy emphasis on the stock that you breed and what you breed. And I think people, if they just saw Garry in the American field, they would think that Gary's just involved with pointers and setters. But you've got a laundry list of breeds that you've bred in the past and maybe are still breeding right now, don't you?
Yeah, we've had everything here. Currently, it's the pointers, the setters, and Jill owns an international champion British Lab from Ireland.
Cool.
Yep, the dog is Power. He's won championships in 3 countries. He's an outstanding dog. He's a fox red lab, almost the color of a Vizsla, but in a lab. And he's 55 pounds of power, and we have a litter here and there off him, and people buy him. The preserve guys buy him for flushing dogs here on the preserve.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, we do some advertising in New York City with the pups. We've done work for J. Crew, Victoria's Secret, and they get a lot of exposure that way. It's a great dog. There's 4 of them that live in the farmhouse with us here on the farm. 4 of the British Labs. They apply themselves, they drive, and yet they have a shut-off button around the house. You don't even know they're in a house.
Garry, British Labs in Victoria's Secret magazines. I mean, look, you're not a bad-looking guy, but is that the closest we can get to the fame and fortune that we all desire? British Labs and Victoria's Secret and J. Crew, that's amazing.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I'm not allowed to go on the shoots without Jill.
There's a reason why the labs are on the cover and in the material and not anybody. I get it. Wow, that's pretty neat.
Exactly.
And another feather in Jill's hat.
Yeah, she put her foot down. The first shoot we did, she whispered to me, "You're not going on these by yourself."
Too funny. And the other part of your operation, though, Garry, is the 300+ acre shooting preserve that you guys operate, where you offer your clients, time a field, dropping birds, get their dogs out and stuff. I just don't know how you manage the trials, the grounds there, the shooting preserve, and the other facets of Indian Creek Kennels, but the shooting preserve has obviously been a successful part of your field trial career.
Yes, it has. I mean, the grounds here are beautiful. We had a couple horseback pros come and stay and work dogs, and they said it's 6 minutes to a monster food chain and Starbucks 6 minutes away. Yet we have this beautiful 300-acre paradise to run bird dogs. We for years I've guided celebrities and professional football players.
Cool.
from New Jersey and New York, and a lot of them have my dogs. And I don't guide anymore. We have guides here that work full time. What'll happen is a guided hunt will go out on the south side of the farm, and that gives me a couple hundred acres on the north side to work the field trial dogs. And the good thing about the preserve, Joe, is we go through thousands of pheasants and chuckers here, and no matter what time of year or when you come here, you cut a dog loose, and you can find these holdover birds, especially the pheasants.
Awesome.
They seem to do well. So it's a huge part of what we do, and I honestly, I think these pheasants make a bird dog.
Yeah. Yeah. I judged the National Amateur Pheasant Championship a year or two ago, and it's pretty testing. It's a big bird, a lot of scent, and usually that bird is doing a dance of some sort when it's found. It really puts a dog on edge, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I've seen so many dogs when there's a couple championships in Western PA at a shooting preserve, and I've watched a bunch of dogs come up from down south that probably never seen a pheasant. I've watched them get taken out time and time again, and I pulled up, and another pro would say, "Man, this is going to be tough. There's pheasants all over." And I'm thinking to myself, "That's my bird. That's my bird."
Yeah, rooting on the pheasant. Well, I know.
Oh, yeah.
I know when they had the pheasant championship at Berea, the leftover birds, which stuck around for quite a while around here, it was kind of amazing. One of my dogs, my Pete dog, found one, and I found him on point way away. It took me a while to get to him, but when I got to him, his eyes were just bugging out of his head, and he was salivating, and I thought, oh my goodness, what's going on here? And sure enough, big old cock pheasant rolled out of there, and I mean, it was just, you could see why he was just about to fall off the edge of the earth. It was just taking everything in him to keep all four on the ground.
Absolutely. They cackle and they flutter getting up. It looks like a pterodactyl coming out of the cover.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. So, Garry, step back with me at about 3,000 feet of the entire sport of field trials as a whole as we kind of bring this to a close. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the interviews that we do, but this is kind of the looking forward type perspective that we like to take. And how do we grow this sport? We hear grumblings of the sport is contracting. There's not enough people getting involved, and it's getting harder to be involved in this sport. But you're too passionate. I'm too passionate. The game is too great. What do we do as a whole to help grow this sport into the future?
I'll tell you, years ago, we had a couple of field trials here on this shooting preserve, and we featured what we call an amateur gun dog stake, or what NBHA would call a judgment seizes at flush. We've had handlers and dogs, you name it, young 12-year-old girls handle dogs, Vizslas, Brittany's, wire hairs, Spamonis, and pointers and setters, and 80-year-old men handle them. It's a huge way to spark the interest for our sport. Matter of fact, Jill and I judged a judgment ceases to flush down at the grasslands down in Albert, Texas, across the street from Ken Sauer. There was a championship, and they had a judgment ceases to flush stake. I want to say there was 30 dogs or high 20 dogs.
Wow.
It was probably one of our best judging assignments. We've seen dogs in there that I would put on my truck. They needed to be fine-tuned, or
but they had the tangibles. They had the things that you're looking for for the starting point of a dog on your string, right?
100%. They just needed the polish, and they had the pedigree. When I asked them, they had the pedigrees, and I told Ken, I said, "That's a wonderful thing you did." With that, a couple of the folks that ran that Ken said are now field trialing.
Yeah.
And the other thing that the judgment ceases to flush does, so you have that at the end of the stake, but you tell people, hey, look, if you want to spend a nice day and come and watch some, professionals run field trial dogs, come watch. So they get to see a completely finished shooting dog and the manners on games. Now they have a standard. Now they have that's where they want their dog headed. Also, they say, I'll never keep my dog like that with these running pheasants, and it's too much work for me because I work during the week. I'm a weekend hunter. However, I'm interested in the sport. I'd like to have a dog on the national circuit, and that's where Joe Lincoln with Aaron's Deja Vu came from.
Wow.
Yep, he come up and bought actually bought a son of Aaron Shamrock off me, and come up and ran him in a gun dog steak. And next thing you know, he said, the dogs you ran, I'd love to own one. Next thing you knew, he owned Aaron's Hidden Shamrock. So I think, to answer your question, Joe, that a gun dog steak, judgment ceases to flush. That's probably, in my opinion, a top way of getting growing the sport.
We've been championing a campaign to all of our club officials and our regional directors to really push and to really try to have these gun dog steaks. And granted, it is another steak to have, and it's more birds and stuff, but the intrinsic value of this, the long-term value of these steaks are far beyond really the prime steaks of the trial. Because, let's say you have an entry of 20 dogs in the gun dog steak, and we had one at Berea that I hosted, and man, it was a hoot. It was so much fun. There was about 15 or 20 dogs in it. We had guys that were involved in shoot or retrieve out there running. We had hunters out there running. We had long-term career field trialers with a couple unbroke dogs that thought, heck, if I'm going this direction, I'll just bring these dogs and, give them their day in the sun. And it was so competitive and so much fun. But the thing about it is if you get one person out of those gun dog steaks that says, just like Joe Link, hey, I like this. I want to do a little bit more. I'll see where this goes or whatever. It has served its purpose.
Absolutely. And it works. And the other thing is, what we do here on the preserve, let's say someone comes up and they buy a setter puppy. Even if they're not hunters, they're just buying a setter puppy. I show them the preserve. I show them a dog and say, hey, you guys interested in hunting? So my son's been talking about it, this and that. Next thing you know, the fella joins the preserve. They have their 14-year-old son out there hunting with them. I think getting youths involved and women involved is the future of the sport. Absolutely. Of not only field trialing, but hunting.
Yes. Especially
here in New Jersey. I think because the farms are all being bought up by developers, and there's less and less places, opportunity to hunt. I think by coaxing the people, come try hunting on a weekend, come to the field trial, especially the kids, the women. I think that's a great way to grow the sport.
We have so many good women handlers too. Like every trial you go to, there are a few women handlers, and they are so. There's nothing about being a woman handler that's any different than a man handler. And as good as well as I do, Gary, if you have a good partner that's female, that's good with dogs, those dogs respond to them. I don't care what anybody says. Horses, dogs. Those animals love women that speak their language, and they are definitely the future.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. You remember a lot of times the fella goes to work. The dog's home with the woman, with the wife most of the day, and the kids, and the man just takes them hunting on a weekend. So if the lady builds a bond with the dog, and the guy says, hey, why don't you come out and take a walk while we hunt this weekend. Next thing you know, the girl's getting her license and buying a shotgun, and there you go. That's what sparks the interest.
Let's just hope that Jill doesn't get the itch to start handling these dogs and taking over, because she might give you a run for your money.
If she does that, I'll quit. She's a lot more attractive to look at handling a dog than I am. Let's put it that way.
Oh, well, now, Gary, these new field trialers that are so coveted that our game is hopefully centered after and trying to really reach, what advice does Garry Malzone, the consummate professional, the guy that's been all over the country, that's had these dogs, what advice does Gary have for new field trialers?
I'd welcome them into the sport and help them out every possible way, and encourage them and give them the confidence that they can do it. I think it would help if they had a little head start financially, because, you need a truck and a trailer and some horses and some good owners. I think it may be a little struggle to get started, but if they have that passion like you and I have, Joe, and they're good with the dogs, Let's face it, you're much younger than I am, but a lot of us are getting older.
Yeah.
And I think the 30-year-old fella that comes in, I think he'll have his day in the sun if he's persistent and he has a passion for the sport.
And I know just by knowing you and Jill, if somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, can you help me with this?" you're probably going to drop what you're doing and do whatever you can to disciple them and show them and to coach them. And that's the thing that I'd like for people to know that are on the outside looking in. There are so many good people in this sport that want to help. Like, they're dying to bring people on and just show them the game. We'll help you later. Let me just show you how good and how beautiful this game is. And if you love it, if you love the hard work part of it and you love the competition part of it, we'll work out the rest of the details later, but let's find the passion first.
I agree, and we're known for it.
Yeah.
We're known for it. We'll give anybody anything we have and help anybody any way we can. We want to make sure it stays and this sport lasts.
Sure, and this sport lasting is one of those things that looms on people's minds. But where does Garry Malzone see the sport 20 years from now, Gary?
Joe, with fellas like you, with this social media platform between this YouTube and Instagram and everything else, I think that's the future. So many guys here, these younger fellas that come hunting. I'm too old to know what it is, but they do this Snapchat and this and that. And I watch them. They take, after the hunt, they take pictures and they send it to all their friends. And they have these GoPros that go onto their gun or their hat and take videos. And I think the technology, what you're doing here with these podcasts and the website, the NBHA is lucky to have you. And I think that you're on track. If we have the young blood and they continue to expose it through social media, and we have the veterans that are in it helping these young people, I do believe the sport, especially the NBHA, I think it'll flourish going forward.
And what's funny about that, Gary, and I appreciate your comments there. I'm not really a social media person. I don't use Facebook personally. I don't use social media for myself personally, but you can't deny the fact that the aesthetics through social media, the outreach and the networking capabilities it has is essentially now the heartbeat of how we communicate and how we keep information flowing between each other in this sport. And we as a game don't necessarily like change that much. And, I love my antiques and I love the way the old things about the game and the history and the heritage of it. Don't get me wrong. I love that. But if we don't buy into the changing world and how we can make our sport relevant in it, then we're just going to be an antique. And it's going to take people, doing different things and getting involved and maybe taking a different look at stuff and, maybe filming a video or doing an interview where they wouldn't be comfortable in the past. But it's now more than ever people can consume more bird dog and field trial related material now more than ever, while at the same time seemingly the sport is shrinking, and that's mind-boggling to me. And I just think that we need to capitalize on it. We need to really champion our sport, put it out there, show the good about it, and make it palatable and approachable to people. And social media is one of those main things. But one of the other things, too, is making people like you visible, because you love dogs, you love people, and you get to put both of those things together in competition at field trials. And you've made friendships and memories that are going to last a lifetime, and that are essentially part of the fabric of Indian Creek.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's well said. And we're going to continue to do so. Anybody we meet, we stand on the hill and preach what a great sport it is, how we love these dogs. It's a great way to get your family outside and in the fresh air, and just a whole bunch of fun.
I can't wait for the roundup of Indian Creek news that finds its way on social media periodically. I know how difficult it is to make those journeys you and Jill do and take care of all those animals and, keep track of entries and where you're going to go and where you're going to stop and stuff. But I always appreciate when you guys take the time and put those updates up online and read about where you're at and what you've done and where you're going and stuff. And you guys you're great flag bearers of not only the NBHA but the sport, and we're so appreciative that you guys have the investment with you and your clients that you do, and how you kind of take us on and make us look good, the field trial world, and we're just so glad to have you guys. And this might be a question for Jill, Gary, if I'm reading through the lines here. If somebody wants to connect with Gary and Jill at Indian Creek Kennels, how do we get a hold of you guys?
We can always be reached through the cell phone. It's my cell phone. It's advertised, or Indian Creek Kennels, New Jersey Facebook. Either give us a call or reach us through Facebook, or even email. We're looking for some new clients and some new prospects. So they can always get us. With the cell is the easiest. Sometimes if we're working dogs, we won't call back till lunchtime, but the cell phone's always the best way.
There you go, folks. One of the most coveted and most accomplished handlers in the field trial game telling you, looking for new clients. The red carpet will be rolled out. Gary, you're awesome. You and Jill, the dynamic duo. Thank you guys so much for taking the time and sitting down on the Breakaway Podcast.
Thank you for having us, Joe, and thank you for everything that you guys do.
That was the Breakaway Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed the podcast, please tell a friend, like, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms to stay up to date on everything National Bird Hunters Association and all other field trial related content. But hopefully, we'll see you next time at the Breakaway.